I've spent my about 50 or more years talking about China to people because people are so interested. It's a very natural thing to want to kind of rediscover things that were good in the past. I don't think that China needs to make any effort to make its culture more appealing. It is there and remains the same. When I first went to China, which was in and China was so completely different, it's almost impossible to describe. I mean, I have such fond memories of Peking at the time, when it was really a kind of little, slightly sleepy city, charming, still retaining its old grid system. I mean, it's unbelievable, the speed with which cities have been transformed into massive areas. The speed of building, the speed of change is absolutely extraordinary. I don't know what it can be like, really, to be an inhabitant of Beijing, to see your city going kind of rushing past you at 100 miles an hour. I think the charm of Chinese civilization, the difference is really part of the charm. If you come from the West, you go to China, and obviously we're all human beings. We have something very much in common in our reactions and so on, and our feelings, but there are wonderfully different things about China. I mean, a lot of it is expressed in language, I think, and the Chinese language is so extraordinarily different, very strong, very distinctive, and very Chinese, and nobody else in the world can lay claim, as it were, to the Chinese language and script and its extraordinary beauty and complexity. You know, all the rest of us working with alphabets, we're all a bit muddled together, but China has got a very distinctive voice in the modern world in that way. I think that there's a huge amount in China that still reflects the past. I mean, some in big things and in small things. I think I would, because I've always been interested in architecture, I would really kind of stress the importance of kind of, you know, the physical nature of China and its traditional buildings. And I would always hope that as much effort as possible was put into preserving traditional buildings, especially because, I don't know, you get old travellers' accounts of China. They say you come into China and immediately you can tell you're in China, and that's because of the buildings. So that traditional building, I think, is very, very important. It should be preserved, and again, traditional forms continued. And I think that's very important. China should be enormously proud of. It's the continuity of the history. That's the longest thing. Other civilizations rise and fall. China has been continuous. China was there, is there, and remains the same. All over the world, most civilizations feel that there's a terrible danger of losing touch with things that have been, since time immemorial, important. I think that China's recent history has been one of turbulence. You're off from the past, that in a sense people are now perhaps sort of seeking to establish a kind of a more peaceful and contented life, and searching for the ways of being content, ways of being happy through traditional ideas. It's a very natural thing to want to kind of rediscover and enjoy again things that were good in the past. Yeah. I don't think that China needs to make any effort to make its culture more appealing. It is enormously appealing to people all over the world. I mean, and I suppose I spent, about 50 or more years talking about China to people, and always, I mean, I've only done it really because people are so interested. I suppose so intrinsic to China is that extraordinary longevity, that uninterrupted millennia, that Chinese history just goes on backwards and then on forwards. And I think that continuity, which includes things like Confucian beliefs, but also inventions, sense of beauty and appreciation of different sorts of beauty in architecture and porcelain and ceramic production, silk production and so on. I think all those things are so long-lived in China. They're very, very important and absolutely intrinsic to Chinese society today.